Rogan was at it again this week as J.D. Vance joined his podcast, and Vance apparently caused some controversy for this comment. Let's watch.
And I think that, frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if me and Trump won just the normal gay guy vote.
Oh,
because,
sure.
Again, they just wanted to be left the hell alone, and now you have all this crazy stuff on top of it.
At another point in the conversation, Joe Rogan pushed back on J.D. Vance's abortion policies. Let's watch that.
Like the concept in the zeitgeist is that abortion had always been, Roe v. Wade had always been the law of the land, and then all of a sudden that was taken away, and you have these religious men who are trying to dictate what women can and can't do with their bodies.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, again, I understand that. I understand the pushback against that, but I think you can go, like with so many other issues, you can go way too far about it, and it becomes trying to celebrate something that at the very best, if you grant, I think, every argument of the pro-choice side, it is a neutral thing, not something to be celebrated.
I think
The two, however, could agree that Kamala Harris frequently talks in circles. Let's take a look.
This law, where are you going? Yeah. You want to get the lights that they use with air traffic controller, come this way.
Yeah, come this way.
Help her out. Do you think she wears an earpiece?
I wouldn't be surprised. I have no idea.
The earpiece one was amazing.
But man,
the little
she just
Bluetooth thing, the earring.
It's astonishing. She talks. The only way I can describe it is she talks in circles.
Yeah,
right. It's like
Tim Dillon says it's like she does gypsy curses because she speaks in gypsy curses.
That's very good. But it's we need to build an opportunity economy, because if Americans don't have opportunity, then they're not going to have the opportunity to be Americans. And it's like, what the hell?
The opportunity
did
to
you
generate
just
wealth.
say?
And J.D. Vance may have gained some brownie points from fans of the show Emily in Paris.
And we're sitting there watching some stupid show, Emily in Paris, on Netflix or something, which, sorry, I don't mean to call that a stupid show. I actually think Emily in Paris is a masterpiece, but set that to the side. Bracket that one for now.
Emily in Paris. He might have just won the female vote, I got to tell you now.
I warned you before this, Amber, that I know nothing about Emily in Paris, so I have nothing to say on that point.
Totally fair. So just a little bit about it, because I think you'll find this funny. Good. So it is about an American who moves to Paris, named Emily, naturally, who goes to provide an American perspective to a marketing firm. So it's basically like the opposite of your life.
Well, I feel better informed already. Is it on Netflix?
It is, and it's deranged. I mean, the plot lines are crazy. The costumes are awesome. People love the fashion. Love it or hate it. It's very, very polarizing. But it's just one of those classic, silly kind of girl shows, but apparently it's very entertaining and very digestible.
This is fantastic. My popular culture knowledge has been boosted by this segment alone.
Glad to hear it.
What did you make of JD on with Joe?
I must admit I haven't had the chance to watch the full 3 hours, so I don't want to comment too authoritatively on it. Based on the clips I've seen and the comment section reactions, people seem to think he did fine, that he came across as normal, likable, what have you. Which I think is all you can really ask for when you're doing a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think those clips that we showed something that we've spoken about before, which is the idea that on Joe Rogan particularly, it's more about showing a human, regular person side of yourself. Some of the commentary there was pretty funny, even when it was mocking Harris, the air traffic control thing, or the
gypsy curses.
Gypsy curses. Those are good lines. I don't want to be completely humorless about it. I guess one of the issues I have with J.D. Vance sometimes is he has this propensity to when it suits him, be the person to say, well, you don't want to go too far, you don't want to go to extremes, and then talk in ways that I find very, very exaggerated. Now, one of the clips that we didn't play there, but I assure you I'm taking this quote correctly, is when he started talking about the use of DEI criteria to get people into college, or to get people into Ivy League colleges in particular. And he said he was basically suggesting that people who were not trans would present themselves that way to take advantage of DEI diversity measures. The quote was, "The only way that people can participate in the DEI bureaucracy in this country is to be trans." I want to stress there, he was talking about people who were not actually trans, pretending to be. That sort of stuff seems to me excessive. I mean, I guess it's one of those things where in a country of 330 million people, you could find 2 people who've maybe done that and then say, well, that proves his point. The idea that people in a general way are going to purport to be trans to get into college, I think is fanciful.
I'm not sure that I agree, and I'll give you 2 reasons why. The first is that when race was one of the qualifiers for affirmative action in college admissions, people like Elizabeth Warren, a prominent one, had this history, this documented history of either exaggerating or outright lying about her family's Native American heritage in order to apparently boost her academic career and gain some kind of favor with certain academic departments. And then, although we haven't seen really much in popular society, people pretending to identify as trans outside of doing it for joke reasons. It is a problem in women's prisons right now, where there are male inmates who will claim to be transgender so that they get housed in women's prisons, usually because the women's prisons aren't as rough and tumble, so you can protect yourself in some way. But also there have been a significant number of prison rapes from men who are pretending to be women who are housed in the women's jails. So I do think it is a legitimate issue that maybe is not one that is exploding right now, but I think he's identifying where it could go.
So I think you raise very valid points, but I want to distinguish, I think, those points from the issue of college admissions, because firstly, you know, there's no mistaking the seriousness of the prison issue, where people who have male genitalia are getting themselves put in female prisons, and all of the risks of predatory behavior and worse than predatory behavior that entails. That is a very serious thing. Now, in relation to the likes of the Elizabeth Warren Native American heritage or indigenous heritage thing, to me the distinction there is that there isn't really there is no negative for an Elizabeth Warren type person to say, oh, I'm Native American, whether she is or she isn't, and you get the advancement without any downside. It seems to me that the issue of saying one is trans, that just seems a more intimate thing to lie about, to be disingenuous about if your goal is simply to get into a college. That's a very different thing from the prison issue, where people for predatory reasons are pretending, you know, in order to attack people in some cases, which of course I wouldn't make light of.
I definitely hear that point, but I wonder as far as the transgender ideology has gone in 2024, you don't have to make any effort to present as a member of the opposite sex. You don't have to undergo hormone therapy in order to be socially accepted as a member of the transgender community. And they also state that it's binary, or it's not binary, right? It's fluid. So you could be someone who goes back and forth, and who is the college administration office to tell you that you're not allowed to identify as the sex you were born as once you actually get into the school. So I think that's something that could be abused by people who are cynically trying to use it in order to advance their collegiate career. Is it going to be common? I find that very unlikely. But I don't think he's wrong to kind of raise that as sort of the logical conclusion of what that trend is leading to.
You know, honestly, one of the advantages, Amber, of having these kinds of conversations, which we've had civilly for most of the week, is that one hears views that you wouldn't have thought of. And the point that you raise about fluidity and how it is now commonplace, at least in some circles, to consider that as fluid, I honestly hadn't thought of that. And I think that's a fair point, that people that describing oneself as trans doesn't require necessarily, I'm even cautious about how I would phrase this.
Like a physical transition.
Exactly, like a physical transition, that one could claim some greater level of gender fluidity. So, yeah, fair point.
I like that. Let's get back to disagreeing.
Yes, exactly, of course. We'll find plenty to do that.
Let's talk about the normal gays comment.
Yeah.
I have to say, I have quite a few friends who might call themselves normal gays, and they thought this was hilarious. I saw it all over my Instagram feed last night of people reposting this clip and saying, like, proud to be one of the normal gays. But I could see how some could probably take offense to this. But I do think that the ones who were criticizing him for it were sort of deliberately not understanding what he meant, which was people who are attracted to members of the opposite sex, but don't like the stuff that's going on in schools with maybe kids being exposed to that too early, or maybe don't like a lot of the transgender ideology. I think that's what he was getting at.
So that may have been what he was getting at, and I thought it was a weird comment rather than an offensive one necessarily.
Fair
it's
enough.
Just like normal gay guy, like, okay, whatever. But I think that, you know, it's interesting to me the way you described that, because one of the things I think we have to guard against in a way is giving some people who we're ideologically sympathetic with the grace of saying, well, what he really meant was X, Y, or Z, and not giving that to people who we disagree with. And so, we were having discussions about Mark Cuban elsewhere in the show about a comment he made. And it's like, it's possible that J.D. Vance meant how you characterized it. I just think that there is a certain combination of sort of oddness and presumptuousness to say, like, oh, we're going to get the normal gay guy vote. I must look and see if there is polling on like the gay vote, and I assume the gay community overall would vote more Democratic than Republican.
Yeah, I mean the one community that does lean more Republican than most of the LGBT community is the white male homosexual vote, which I think is, again, what he was getting at. And if you continue on through the clip, I saw a longer version on social media. He does say, the ones who don't believe X, Y, Z, etc.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I guess that gives some context.
A little bit more cover than I think maybe Mark Cuban got.
Yeah. Well,
although I'm sure I'm biased. We all are.
I did see, and we didn't play it there, that Joe Rogan is still holding out hope of Kamala Harris coming on his show. I think it may be a fading hope, but we're on the record as agreeing that we would like to see that.
I would love that. Let's do it. I would actually make time for that, I promise. We have a lot more topics to cover here on Rising. Stick around. We'll be right back after this.